expert, the guy. Matty's got jokes and a wild ride. 30 minutes, no time to spare. Stack your lineup, win anywhere. NFL SuperCoach Half-a. Get your edge, get faster. Taylor leads, Matty's laughter. NFL SuperCoach Half-a.
Welcome back to the NFL SuperCoach Half-a. I'm Matty C, and with me is my partner in SuperCoach crime fighting. He's Australia's finest fantasy analyst and SuperCoach legend. It's Taylor Goodall. Welcome back, mate.
Matty, we enter week 3 of talking about SC with Matty C. How do you say yes in Spanish? C. Let's go.
That had a personal touch. I love that. That's instantly my favourite one.
Yeah. bring a little bit of a bit of Mr. Worldwide to the podcast this week, Matty. So, you know me, always trying to change it up.
Oh, I love it. Mate, welcome back. It's fantastic. We're here for a third dose of SuperCoach Halfa. And mate, we were getting so much great feedback from the first couple of shows. It's been just so terrific. I've been blown away.
Mate, me too. You and I started this sort of on a whim when they released NFL SuperCoach, and to get such amazing feedback from the people that have been listening has honestly been humbling. And I've been getting DMs in the messenger on Messenger from people that are of all kinds, people that are SuperCoach gurus that have never done NFL, or people that have done NFL fantasy but have never tried SuperCoach. All kinds have been messaging me, and honestly, to hear that feedback is just is fantastic for me. So, guys, if we ever need to do anything on this podcast that you guys want to hear, please let us know. Send it to Matty Connor or myself, Taylor Goodall. We are not going to see it as a bad thing. We always want to improve this product for you guys. So please reach out. But I can't wait to sink our teeth into running backs tonight after doing quarterbacks last week.
And that's perfect because wide receiver and running back are positions of so much more depth. So we're really just going to focus on these episodes on just talking about them. We'll come back and talk more strategy stuff as we get closer to the start of the season. Quarterback, you're only starting one. You've got one on the bench. But the running backs today, you're going to need 4 in your lineup and you're going to need 2 on the bench. So there's a bit to think about in how you construct that. We wanted to go through the 10 most owned in SuperCoach right now. And we want to go through kind of a little bit of a pro and con, devil's advocate kind of thing, Tay.
Yeah, so what I've found in our sort of NFL fantasy chats just on our regular show is sometimes you kind of look things almost too glass half full sometimes, and it's not a bad thing. Like, we like to obviously get on a podcast and talk about guys we love instead of guys we dislike for whatever reason. But I think for super coaches listening to this podcast, especially when we're talking about top 10 owned players in this position, I think we need to actually do a little bit of a devil's advocate and have a look at the reasons why these guys might not hit. Because if we basically just blow smoke up the asses of all these guys, then no one's really ever going to be able to make a decision on who to not have and who to have. So I just felt like it was almost good for you and I, because there's definitely some guys up here that you and I have both sort of talked up to the cows have gone home. It's good to just have a look at the opposite side, because you become a better super coach or a better just analyst in general if you can actually look at the other side of the argument.
Mate, our top owned running backs, there's a couple we actually just think are no-brainer, complete sense. And I'm so glad that a few of these are right at the very top. First one out of the gate is rookie running back for Las Vegas, Ashton Jeanty. He's currently owned by 57% of super coaches. Is that a good thing?
Yeah, look, it should be 100. It's, if anyone's out there in the 43% that doesn't have him, please go get him. He helps you build your team as well, because he's such a low value. You can actually start him with confidence as well. So he's not even a guy you have to put on your bench. I would put him in my starting lineup to sort of build my team elsewhere. So, mate, he's a no-brainer to me. So I'm not going to need to delve into his sort of downside, because honestly, I don't think there is one.
No downside. $4.5 million. His break evens in single digits. That is... You said no-brainer. I took my brain out and I've got him in my lineup. Next one down that list is just as good. It's Amari and Hampton. He's the new running back at the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of what makes him so great is, again, the $4.4 million price tag, so the low break even. He's going to get work because the other guy in his backfield has been struggling with an injury, and we don't know what his situation is going to be like come week 1. And even then, if his situation is he's sharing, the price is so low, he's going to sail through that break even.
Yeah, it's not as much of a no-brainer as Jeanty, but it's close. He's a guy that you can start. I've got no issue if you want to run him as a bench. running back, but he's got too good of an opportunity. Rookies taken in the first round almost always hit, and even if they don't hit, he's still going to go far better than his break even and his price tag right now. So he's just a no-brainer to me, and that fits me well because I've got no brain in the first place.
Yeah, you and I both, mate. You and I both. The next one, I think, is where we start getting into fellas where it gets a bit more tetchy because we've got a lot of data on Saquon Barkley. He's currently 42% started by SuperCoaches, 42% owned. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. He's very expensive, rightly, because he had such a great season last year. This is part of the Stars and Scrubs approach, I think, is because there's very few players who give you so much guaranteed production that his break even is going to be 42 points. I still kind of feel like with all the touches he gets, with that exceptionally good offensive line in front of him, and they're a team who are constantly in scoring position, I don't really have any concerns about him hitting that break even. This is a player I'm very positive on, and I'm delivering the pro on. Do you have a devil's advocate argument, Tay?
I do. It feels like a kick in the nuts as I do it, but I'm going to give at least some kind of, that's part of the game tonight, Matty C. We're going to back and forth between being positive and negative for the player, and then we'll kind of touch on it at the end. But look, for a Saquon downside case, obviously, he's 24.86 million, break even 42 with a 42% ownership. There's better value players at the position. He's coming off a historic season, and these are generally the guys you fade in SuperCoach because it's hard to repeat. 345 carries is historically not repeatable. So if he's going to get near his total, it would need to be more efficient. He also has a rushing quarterback that can take his rushing touchdowns. The team also has a much harder schedule this season, so there's a chance they might throw and run less. Saquon doesn't catch many passes either in this offense, so he's more of a game script concern than some of the other top-line running backs. 43 targets last season is barely over 2 a game, so he's not getting you those 2 SuperCoach points that will be so vital.
So he's an expensive player with a high break even, but he's a star. What do we think his chances are that his value goes up over the season, Tay?
I had to do a devil's advocate, but I love Saquon, mate. Yes, it's a high price tag, but I've got him. This will sound silly considering I just said I love him. I've got him as 45%. I think he just fits a perfect mold of a keeper, though. I don't believe that he needs to hit that exact mark for him to be a very coach asset for you this season. I think he fits that keeper mold from anyone that's played SuperCoach in NRL and AFL. I just think he's the guy that is also a captaincy option each week, in awesome matchups. I think there is a reason to believe that there might be a slight downticks from last year, but I just think he's still going to be the number one scoring running back in the position. So I've got him at 45%, but I don't want that to deter people, and I'll touch on that at the end anyway.
And I kind of went the other way. I went, well, he's a 50-50 shot, but that's so fence city. I'm going to go 55% because I do think that while his quarterback took 14 rushing touchdowns off him, and I think that's still going to continue to be a part of their offense, I just think that, Saquon only had 13 rushing touchdowns last year. That's so repeatable. And I think with the value that's worth in SuperCoach, 12 points, to me, that says a lot that there's room for that to grow. And I'm not super confident. I'm saying 55%, but I'm also saying it's completely achievable. Maybe I can expect that as often as not. The next guy is 38% owned. It's Bijan Robinson. He's kind of trendy in NFL world as a first pick at running back too, for those who don't think that a running back one can repeat year on year. But at 24.3 million, Bijan Robinson needs to get a 36-point break even on average over the course of the season to return his value. Tay, you think he can do this?
Yeah, look, he comes in at 3.4 million less than Saquon of a break even of 36, which I think is very achievable for a player with his talent. 38% ownership. Bijan is on an upward trajectory in his career, which is what you want to see when comparing him to the prior season like you do in SuperCoach. His offense is also on the rise. Seems to be zero reasons as to why he would go backwards from last season. The Falcons have the number 8 offensive line ranking per PFF this season. You get 2 points per reception in SuperCoach, and this guy is an amazing pass catcher with juice. He had 72 targets in the passing game last season. Saquon, on the other hand, if you're comparing, only had 43. He's an elite top-tier talent, and there's still room to move at his starting price. In the last 3 games of the season, where Michael Penix was the quarterback, who is now the current quarterback, he had games of 170 yards, 90 yards, and 94 yards, or 6 touchdowns combined. So I'm just leaving it there. Look, I just think there's a lot of positives for him this year. I can see why people are starting with him.
Yeah, I can too. And I get to play the devil's advocate on this one and say, well, he's had the one good year and we're so fast to anoint him now as like the next great thing. He's got a second running back in that backfield who has proven he comes in to spell Bijan Robinson. And if he's productive, he stays in there a little longer. He doesn't always avoid the touchdown, and the touchdown doesn't always go to Bijan either. And I think Michael Penix has shown he can do stuff with his legs too that may take a little bit away from what Bijan was doing last year. I know it's not always bad to have a running quarterback and a mobile quarterback, but until we see what that's like on a bigger scale, it's such a small sample size to put 21.4 million into the guy. I think they would be the reasons you'd be nervous.
No, that's fair enough, mate. What percentage do you have him to repeat?
Well, I was much more of a naysayer on this one, and I think this is just because of where I sit on those things. I do buy into that Tyler Algier a little bit. I put him at a flat 40%.
I was on the positive side of him. I don't know if it was because I was coming up more with the positive, side of it. I don't know if we're actually leaking into our own percentages by actually having to do the devil's advocate and not. But I had him at 55%. I just don't have a lot of the reasons as to why he would go backwards from what he did last year. I can see your side of it, but I didn't have him as a huge bump up from last year. I think his value is what it is, but I just think there's reasons for optimism for this offense. So I had him at 55%.
The next fellow on the list is 37% owned, but cheap as chips, $4.1 million for Travion Henderson. He's a rookie running back for the New England Patriots. The great thing about these guys is their break-evens are all like a single-digit number. This is why we kind of consider them to be no-brainers, because, Tay, do you think he's just likely to eat the most of that role there and be the one who contributes the most points from the running back situation at New England?
Yeah, this is the one for me where I've got him as a no-brainer, so I don't think we need to go through the devil's advocate and positive side.
Yeah.
I think he should be in everyone's team. He is the first one where I believe you should have him on your bench. I wouldn't trust him enough from week one to be in my starting lineup. I would probably still want some more assurity. Like, I'd obviously rather Hampton and Genty as starters over him. I think he's the perfect guy to sit on your bench and just sort of see how the workload goes between him and Rodre. So, yeah, I think he's a no-brainer to have in your team. I just think this is the first guy where I think it makes more sense to have him on your bench from week one than in your starting lineup.
I'm glad you say that because that's exactly where I put him. The next guy on the list is 35% owned. He's going to cost you only $18.37 million. I say only because when you say the name Christian McCaffrey, you kind of think he might be up in the much more expensive part. But because it's all based off last year's stats, he's coming in lower. Mate, I am taking the positive end of this because I think he's got a lot of room to maneuver to go up. He only played half the season last year, and I think that team was in so much flux. There were injuries across all of the offense. They've still got injury problems, but they've trained with them and they've gone through the preseason with them. They're coming into week one with a plan. He has a break even of 31 points. I think given the ways he can hurt you, 31 points, I don't think that's going to be a problem for him to maintain over the course of the season. I'm really up on Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, look, I'm going to have to do this. It's part of the game, but I'll find some ways. Don't worry. Look, injuries. He currently has bilateral tendonitis in both of his Achilles, which destroyed his 2024 season. Sure, we have trades, but is it worth taking the risk on him going down in the first quarter of a game and scoring you 2 points and setting your season back? I'm no physio, but I personally have Achilles tendonitis in one of my feet, and it's not great. You're generally told to load manage everything that you're doing. And so obviously, it's a concern moving forward, even when he's on the field, what they do in terms of his backups. Isaac Garendo filled incredibly well for the Niners last season. He had 5 yards per carry, which is a full yard per carry better than CMC while he was on the field last season. CMC is also 29, which makes all these injuries tougher to come back from. And generally 29 is an age cliff for running backs where we start to see a big decline.
I like that because generally it was 30, but I think for this, Christian McCaffrey might be the oldest 29-year-old I've ever seen. so I get it because he's had so many injury problems.
In saying that, my percentage is 85%. I'm sorry, man. I'm starting a CMC and no one can stop me. Like, it's, Yeah, I think he's got so much upside in this position. I think there's, honestly, outside of the injury I brought up, you never heard me say one stat against him because when he's on the field, he's so dominant. So, look, I just wanted to obviously play the devil's advocate for people just in case they're a little bit concerned. But for me, at that price, I just think he's not a no-brainer because there's obviously, those concerns. But for me, he's just got too much upside to miss out on him, mate. I just feel like he can be the running back one over a Saquon or a Bijan, but you're getting between $6 and $4 million, price, saving on those guys. So yeah, mate, he'll be in my week one team.
Yeah, he's in my starting lineup. I feel very good about it. I'm looking at this in terms of do players stay healthy? McCaffrey stays healthy. This is a 100% chance that he's going to return this, but that's the problem. You can't know, and he's shown us that he's got that propensity. So my number's also quite high. I went with 90. I just don't think he could be so unlucky with injuries 2 years in a row. He's worked really hard. I expect he'll be fine.
I'll just say too, guys, like, you're trying to win SuperCoach, right? You're not trying to play it safe. You're not trying to get 1,000 out of 10,000 people. Look, sure, that would be great to say you had a good year. That's fine, but we're trying to win. You've got to take shots like these. Like, if you miss out on him in week one, he goes absolutely bonkers. You're behind the pack straight away. So I just think he's worth having in that week one team.
This is where we see a massive drop in ownership, Tay. It's from CMC at 35% to Jahmyr Gibbs, who's at 19%. Jahmyr Gibbs is still one of the more expensive ones at 23. He's got a break even now of 39 points. So I can see why 19% ownership. What do you think it is in that offense that is positive for him to have that 39% break even?
Mate, amazing offense. Another one who has number one running back in the league upside, but has a bit better value than Saquon at the top. 1.6 million less with a break even, like you said, of 19% ownership. The offensive line still has better than average with a PFF rank of 13th. Now, naysayers will say that's a worse offensive line than they had last season, which is true, but here's the kicker. Frank Ragnow was the best center, or close to the best center in the league, who retired for the Lions, and he helped their running game mostly straight down the center of the line, which is actually where Gibbs' counterpart, David Montgomery, has done most of his damage from. So I think this hurts Montgomery massively. Gibbs is also the better pass catcher and more electric back, so he can hit the edges of the offensive line where they are still wonderful at run blocking. The Lions also have a harder schedule and project to be in more games where they will need to pass, which means we should see Monty off the field and Gibbs playing a higher snap count. Gibbs does have an issue that other high-end backs don't have, which is obviously a great backup. The fact is, though, his price is based off Montgomery being there last year, and I think his role is diminished, which is where you will see your value for Gibbs this season.
Mate, all this makes super great sense to me, and having to talk down Jahmyr Gibbs is tough for me, but I don't know that it's going to be as difficult as I first thought, because once they get in close, I still think this is a Montgomery trying to pound it in behind the big guy's game. And even then, if they're in a position where they're just so far out from the goal line that it's not really a David Montgomery situation, well, you're passing. They've got great passing weapons in Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams. They've also got, I don't know if you've ever heard of Sam Laporta, great tight end in there. They've got a lot of options to go to that aren't necessarily coming out of the backfield. I just think there's still a lot of variety for this Detroit team, and that these touchdowns may not all just end up going to Gibbs from 20 yards out. I've got my nervousness about where this goes since the offensive line has taken a bit of a hit.
No, mate, that's fine. What percentage you have for him?
So he's break even at 39. It's a very high number, and I don't have as much confidence. I went with 35%. Yeah, it's the touchdowns things that bothers me, and touchdowns are valued so highly in SuperCoach. There's another severe drop from 19% down to guys who are at 13%. Derrick Henry, of all people, only 13% owned, I hear you say. Well, he had a great year last year. There is a lot of room for him to take that $22.5 million and either drop, or there's even room to grow. And I know that sounds mad because he had touchdowns from here to Timbuktu and he had yards coming out his ears last year. But I'm going to take the side, Tay, that I think even with a 38-point break even, he's going to grow it. Because, weird as this might be, Lamar Jackson scored a bunch of rushing touchdowns last year. And I just think that you get into that red zone now, you've got defenses who are in two minds about what to do. Derrick Henry, very strong, very fast, hasn't shown any signs of slowing down, even though he's over that age 30 thing we were just talking about with McCaffrey, because unlike McCaffrey, Henry has stayed super healthy his whole life. And that offense is just continuing to improve and improve. I'm fine with Henry at his price. He's not on my team, but that's not a product of me not liking him. And I'll explain why when it comes to my percentage around why I think he's going to beat his break even very often. But he is just in this perfect situation, and he's the perfect back for that offense.
Oh, do I really have to do this? I know I came up with the idea of being devil's advocate for Derrick Henry, but it feels like shit. But anyway, I'll try my best. All right. Like you said, 22.49 million, break even at 38, 13% ownership. Matty C, I don't mean to be a millennial, but he's an unk. He's 31 years old and already on the wrong side of the running back age cliff. He's being priced on a season where he had 18 total touchdowns and 2,114 all-purpose yards. Last season was an outlier for a man of his age. He also didn't have a healthy backup to take any snaps, whereas this season Keaton Mitchell is there. Will he take many? No, but he's a good back who will at least take more rushing work than Justice Hill did last season. The biggest problem also is Henry doesn't catch passes. He needs a historic amount of touchdowns and yards again, just to get near his starting price. 22 targets is incredibly low for a starting running back. He also has a rushing quarterback in Lamar Jackson, who had a historically low amount of rushing touchdowns last year, so he could take more off Henry. That felt like vinegar. I'll say that.
Yeah, it sounds like you're salty. That's what it sounds like. Let's go millennial language here. You sound salty. Mate, I went and put my number for him getting this rather high break-even. We're saying Jameer Gibbs and Derrick Henry pretty much have the same break-even. I'm actually on the very comfortable 60% that he's going to do it pretty often. It's the touchdowns thing, and his yards per carry is so high. That offensive line is the best he's ever had. I really can't run into ways that he doesn't score points. It doesn't even matter if he doesn't catch passes. He never has. He's never needed it. I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I've got him pretty much right on. I gave him 48. I do have reasons to believe he could have even more touchdowns this year because obviously historic Lamar Jackson passing touchdowns from last year, if they sort of come back down to the mean, there's a chance there's even more rushing touchdowns. But I do think the yards, there's a chance, like I said, I brought up Keaton Mitchell, there's at least a chance he takes some, rushing work off him. I'm worried about the 2,100 yards repeating. That's my only concern. I think there's a chance he could have the same, if not more touchdowns, but maybe less yards. So I've got him at 48%. So yeah, look, that basically means that I think he'll pretty much just stay at his price all year.
Which is fine for a keeper, right? You need him to return the value. It's nice if they can grow, but you will need him to return their value. And I'm pretty comfortable that Derrick Henry is going to be one of these guys that you just invest in and he returns your investment, right?
No, absolutely. I don't currently have him in my team, but I think there will be moments where I do during the season because once he gets a good run of matchups, he's the kind of guy that just destroys like terrible rush defenses. So yeah, I imagine he's the kind of guy that I'll be bringing into my team when I kind of come on this podcast during the season and talk about matchups.
He's got 4 games between Cleveland and the Bengals, so there's 4 games where you know he's gonna eat. It's no drama.
6 between 2 games.
We're going to stay in the 13% ownership range because the next guy is a rookie, so he's cheap, $3.75 million. RJ Harvey for the Denver Broncos, and Tay, we think the Denver Broncos are going to run a bit. Have you got a reason why he's an absolute buy at 3.75?
Yeah, look, like when you talk about his price, 3.75, a break even of 6. He's currently a 14% ownership. I think it's a no-brainer in terms of starting price. He's an absolute guarantee to make money. He was drafted in the second round of the 2025 NFL draft. The Broncos have the second-ranked offensive line per PFF this season. They also have the number 1 ranked defense this season, so there will be plenty of positive running game scripts for their running backs this year. He also profiles as an amazing pass catcher, and Sean Payton, their head coach, has always had a tendency to use the running backs in the passing game. I'll give you a couple of stats from last year, Matty C.
Ooh, please do.
Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin, their two main running backs last season, combined for 97 targets and 76 receptions. That's 152 SuperCoach points in just catches alone to the running back position. So, like I said, I think it's a no-brainer in terms of actual price. I will say, and I'll kind of touch on this at the end, in terms of your build of your team, I don't think he has to be in your team because there is lots of good running back options, but he's definitely one of them. So I've got him at a literal 100% chance to break his break even this year.
Yeah. And this is the thing, like, is he a no-brainer for a starting price and for beating his break even? I think that's just absolutely unable to be disputed. The only thing that bothers me about him is that I don't think he's the only guy in that backfield. I don't know what his share is going to look like. And I think to me that caps his ability to make your cash generation. So if we get into this season and all of a sudden we see J.K. Dobbins, who's this wily old veteran who's never been able to stay healthy and do what he generally does, pound the rock, be the close to the goal line guy, be the guy who dives over when it's third and short, then that's just going to limit RJ Harvey's ability to take snaps and to generate points. So it's the only reason I'm nervous about his cash generation. Do I think he grows value? Oh, 100%. But that's the things that detract from me as to why he's not a no-brainer the way that I think Genty, Amari Hampton, and Travion Henderson are.
Yep, absolutely. It's just a complete build of your team. If you need a running back in that position that's completely basement price, he's your guy. I think he's great if you haven't got, Genty and Hampton and that already. But if you're wanting to sort of fill your starting running backs with higher price guys that you think can sort of break Supercoach and you just don't have a position for him, I'm fine if you start, not starting with him as well.
Yeah, perfect. The last guy in the 13% range is from the Miami Dolphins, running back named Devon Achane. He's currently $17.9 million. Now, last year, no running back caught more passes than Devon Achane. He had 80 catches, which is not a bad season for a wide receiver, to be fair. And then he also runs the ball, and he wasn't the most proficient and most prolific runner of the ball, but each year is a new year, and I just don't know that there's any way he's not going to be just as involved in the passing game. I think that 80 catches recycles pretty easily, and only having 900 yards on the ground, I expect that will improve. The offense was in a lot of flux last year while they had issues with their quarterbacks, injuries at wide receiver, and all of a sudden the middle of the field just kind of became a picking zone for their passing game. This year, things are settling back down, and I think we'll see the best out of this offense. And to me, that means that Achane's going to be in game scripts where he can run the ball, and they're going to continue to want to move the ball quickly from the line of scrimmage, short passes into the flat, and just give him space to move in. That's how Devon Achane plays his best football, and that's how Miami are going to play their best football if they want to win games. I just don't know that there's any way that he's ever going to miss this 30-point break even.
Look, Matty, so I'm going to tell you why. Achane, he's an undersized back who's already shown that as soon as he's given a high workload, he's a super high risk of injury. For him to succeed, not only do you need him to be healthy, but you also need Tua to be healthy. Once Tua wasn't in the team, Achane's value completely fell off a cliff. And Tua is one concussion away from missing the entire season or possibly even retirement. Case in point, Achane has already injured his calf, so this needs to be an avoid till we have more clarity on the timeline. The Dolphins were the worst goal line rushing team in the league last year and seem to already be looking elsewhere for those duties. So Achane most probably won't have a whole lot of rushing touchdowns. Their offensive line is also quite poor, with a PFF rank of 25 coming into the season.
Yeah, but you see, they just lost Alexander Mattison for the season too, and this is brand new news. So I just kind of think that shifts things for them a bit. The free agent running back market out there isn't great. I imagine this is just things that just tip a little bit more volume to the Achane bucket. I put him for percentage chance to beat and to grow his value at 85%. I am just super confident the passing work will do it all. Yeah,
again, it's a bet on Tua. It really is. I like to project health, so obviously I was doing the devil's advocate side. I did actually have him over % too. I was nowhere near as bullish as you. I had 55%. I don't think he's a bad buy. He just kind of fits. Again, I'll talk about this later when we sort of wrap up exactly what we've done for tonight's podcast, but kind of fits an area that I'm not looking to really fill in my SuperCoach team for week 1, but we'll get to that later. But I've got 55% for him in terms of beating his starting price.
Yeah, and I don't own him either. He's not in my lineup, but I've got a lot of reasons why I think during the season there's going to be opportunities to slide him in there for a couple of weeks, and then just take the riding high on the points and then get him out of there. I think he's going to be really situational for me.
Yeah, and like I said, that calf injury worries me. So keep an eye, obviously, on team lists and in week 1, because obviously if he's not there, I'd start him. And I think it's enough for me to just watch anyway. So yeah, I just thought I'd point that out.
Yep. Yeah, very wise. Next guy down the list is Bucky Irving. He is 10% owned in terms of SuperCoach lineups at the moment. It's priced at $14.9 million coming off the back of a pretty good rookie campaign, really. And you know how much I love a guy who's named after his team. Bucky Irving, the Buccaneers. Tell you know it rings my bell. Much room for upside, though, at that starting price?
Mate, I'm going to bring out some stats straight out of the gate.
Sure.
These are the stats from after Tampa Bay's Week 11 bye, and basically where they reverted to Bucky Irving as their running back 1 and lead back. These are all SuperCoach points, so I've made this completely relevant, obviously, to SuperCoach. Obviously, we just brought it up. He has a break-even of 25, so keep that in mind. Week 12, 54. Week 13, 55. Week 15, 27. Week 16, 36. Week 17, 46. Week 18, 33. I left out week 14 because he only played 16% of the snaps because he was absolutely beat to shit the week before against the Panthers, where he had 25 carries. Even though Tampa will start the season without their best O-lineman in Tristan Wirfs, I still think this team has a great offensive line. They're ranked 6th per PFF.
I mean, it's hard to top that because I also think that a lot of what was hampering his volume early in the year last year was that Rashad White kind of had that job as an incumbent from the year before, and they hit this injury problem partway through the year where their biggest targets, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, were both missing. So their offense had to take a certain shape, and I really think it stymied what they do. But once they're in a position where they had so much of their options available again, Bucky Irving was terrific. At $14.9 million, though, I don't know if I'm that keen to get in there for that. It's kind of in that weird middle range where the cost is just a bit prohibitive. I can get better cash generation out of somebody cheaper. So in terms of my confidence in spending that kind of money on him, I don't think that's how I'm going to end up building my team.
No, I don't have him either, but I did put him at 65%. I actually think there will be times where I probably will be looking to downgrade someone higher to him. Obviously, it'll need to be quick because if he absolutely dominates like he did at the end of last year, he's going to move up quickly in price. But I don't have him in my current squad, just the way I've built my team, but I've got him at 65% because look at those numbers when he was a lead back. They are just so much higher than obviously his break even. So, yeah, I just think there's reason for positivity for Bucky this year.
I agree with you. My number there was 60% too, because I just think that he does a lot of the work in the passing game, and he has more room to do the things that make him good when the Buccaneers have all of their usual receiving weapons, and that offensive line's fantastic. So in terms of just a straight up points scenario and him scoring enough points to continue to grow, yeah, I'm 60%. It's hard to be a devil's advocate against a guy who's not top shelf in terms of cost. It has a lot of opportunity. The last guys on our list here who we want to do the devil's advocate for are a fella from the Kansas City Chiefs, Isaiah Pacheco. Now, last year, he was hurt a bit, which is why he's got such a depressed starting value at $8.45 million. He did hurt a leg, though, and I think that gets up in people's heads when it comes to a running back. He has a break-even of only 14 points, though, which, Tay, I'm going to go right into the positives on this one. This guy, he runs like his hair's on fire. He runs angry, and he was really limited in doing that last year. This is what depresses his value, and this is why I think that you can have confidence in him this year. The other backs in that backfield are a very old and out of shape Kareem Hunt, who may take a few touchdowns off him, but isn't a volume hog. Rashad Smith, and then you've also got a fellow who's come in on the wind from San Francisco, Elijah Mitchell, who spent most of his life hurt. I just don't think there's a lot of competition for the value touches that Pacheco's going to get. And $8.45 million seems so cheap.
Yeah, I've got no issue with the price in terms of him beating it. It's just an awkward price. And it's more about the situation than stats. He's coming off a terrible injury, like you said, which we will need to see if it's taken any toll, on him and taken some of his juice away. My problem is I don't think we ever see a big season from Pacheco again because unfortunately he lost his opportunity to be the workhorse last season. I think the team truly trusts Kareem Hunt. You're right, he is older and I don't think he's going to get some ridiculous workload, but it's just more guys that are obviously going to take away from Pacheco's, I guess, potential breakout. He's going to be far more involved than any Pacheco owner will want. Like you said, they brought in Elijah Mitchell. I don't think he does a whole lot, but I've always liked him. And the fact is that there's three guys splitting a share. You even brought up, Brashard Smith. I think there's just too many mouths to feed and they're going to go to too many different backs. The Chiefs also haven't been in amazing running back situations for a few seasons now, like they used to be back in the first time that Kareem Hunt was around. They basically put a silencer on their offense. I think, like I said, I think Pacheco beats his break even. So this isn't I guess a point against him on that side of it, but I just don't think it's by a big enough amount. And I just don't know if he's going to be super relevant SuperCoach in that awkward price range.
Yeah, is he going to grow value? I'm putting that as close to 100% as you can get. I think that the only way that diminishes is if something extraordinary happens, right? It was a break in a bone in his leg. That's a 6-week injury, and then all you do is you get your cardio back. So I don't think that's actually going to hurt him physically. It's just that you already have to spend $8 million where you can get better cash generation from somebody who's cheaper, who's going to have a more clear role. So he's just not been part of my build. But do I think he can beat his to grow his value? Oh, practically 100%.
Yeah, I had him as 80, and honestly, it would have just been a complete injury that probably would have even stopped him. So, yeah, I had him very high in terms of beating his break even, but yeah, like I said, I find it being an awkward price, and you basically need to be like an Ashton Genty or something when you're heading towards that low to beat your break even by heaps for me to actually pick you in my running back slots because they're just too hard to fill. There's too many good buys.
Yeah, completely agree. Mate, we're going to move into the last guy. We're going to do the for and against on, the devil's advocate argument on. And I feel sad about this because you've got the positive on this one. Chase Brown is 9% owned. And, mate, he had a terrific introduction to the NFL as a rookie last year. He's priced at $16.61 million. What say you about him and being able to grow his price?
Matty C, he's 9% ownership, but 100% owner of my heart. We talked about Bucky earlier and his stats once the team turned to him as their lead back. Let's have a look at Chase Brown's SuperCoach points after he had to take over in week 9. He went from a 50% snap share in week 8 to an 80% snap share in week 9 and basically held that the rest of the season. These are SuperCoach points again for anyone that's listening. All right, week 9, 53. Week 10, 45. Week 11, 39. Bye. Week 13, 38. Week 14, 49. Week 15, 53. He sort of tailed off a little bit at the end. Week 16, 28. And week 17, 26. But you've just seen like the numbers he was putting up as soon as he became the team's lead back. And this team's defense sucks ass. They are going to be hurry-up offenses all season. Yes, he's a smaller back, but this is the new school Austin Eckler for any NFL fantasy tragics out there. An amazing pass catcher with an ability to be shifty between the tackles and will have more opportunities for touchdowns. So many.
This is the toughest job of the whole day, is trying to detract from Chase Brown because, look, they're in a situation where even the guy who was really the second player in that backfield got cut. So it's really hard to make a detraction argument. I think really the only argument I could make to detract from this situation is because their offense is all they have and their defense is so bad, they may be trailing so many games. If they're passing, if they're just up against bad passing defenses, that ball may not get to Chase Brown as much as we like. And we saw in the last couple of games of last year, there are bad case scenarios for Chase Brown to not score the amount of points you need. Does it balance with the big games? Probably, but it means that he's got the opportunity to really let you down in a week you need him. That's all I've got to tell you. I can't say anything else.
Yeah, mate, I honestly felt like that was the hardest one. Yeah, my only style would have been if they actually have some game shifts where they're in front, their offensive line is actually shithouse. So there is at least like the world where you could say if he's not on the goal line, he's not going to have an amazing yards per carry. But This team, just the way they work, it just doesn't matter because he's got that pass catching baseline. It feels like a no brainer to me. And because he had half the season where he was splitting snaps with Zach Moss, that's where you're getting the value for him this year. I just think he's undervalued. I put him at 80%. To beat last year, and he's in my side. He was honestly one of the first ones I picked. I am so high on him in NFL fantasy, and for SuperCoach, I just think he's at an amazing price for what he gives, especially in the passing game with those two SuperCoach points per reception. I think he's set up for success.
The last thing I want to say about him too is like, after all of this, his break even at the moment to grow value is 28 points. And his 2 bad weeks last year were 26 and 27. So a bad day out is exactly what he needs to maintain value. Oh, get him in my team at 16.61. He was one of the very first people I picked up. So it was nice to hear that you were so affirmative on him because immediately I could see that value. So I feel like if Chase Brown is going to stay at 9%, there's probably a lot of people who are kind of missing the boat. Tell everybody you know, get on Chase Brown.
Absolutely, mate. I just wanted to sort of wrap up everything we just sort of spoke about, just because obviously we're saying our percentages, and I think there'd be a lot of people out there who just are listening going, oh, we're only going to take the guys that they said are over 50%. And that's not necessarily the case, especially with some of the higher up guys. Like I said, this isn't as simple as just taking the guys that I have higher percentage of returning value and leaving the guys that don't. It's all relative. And you're also chasing points as well as money. Please don't forget that. So, for instance, I'm a 45% chance that Saquon repeats his 41.6 SuperCoach points per game, and a 5% chance that Achane beats his 30 points per game. But I still think that Saquon's a better pick. Sometimes, even if someone isn't a perceived value in terms of starting price, they are still a fantastic asset for your weekly ceiling. Saquon also provides a captaincy option, like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, in amazing matchups, which increases his value. If anything, Achane's 55% chance of repeating isn't really enough upside to spend 17 mil on him, in my opinion. He fits into a middle ground I'm personally not looking for, where I'd rather lock in the safety of Saquon, even if he was to slowly lose money over an entire year, and mix him in with other guys like Genty, Hampton, etc., who are completely undervalued, and will make money and will make up for any potential losses from a guy like Saquon. Even someone like RJ Harvey, who I have as 100% chance to beat his break even, I think it's purely based on the build of your team. I know I already ran through this, but I thought I'd just sort of take a look at it again. If you were looking for a bench running back and you're running Genty and Hampton as starters, then I think Harvey is perfect. But he's also someone I'm happy to leave and go for more upside shots at running back and have Hampton and Henderson on your bench instead.
Mate, to wrap this up, we wanted to bring a point of difference player as well for the running back position, which, mate, for me, I found this a little harder than I thought I was going to. But then once I looked down the list again, I went, oh, well, there's one that's really shining at me. Did you want to introduce yours first?
I'm going to do mine, and can I try and guess yours? It's someone that I just looked at. I know we do a lot of pods together, and we've sort of talked about guys that we think of value, so there's a chance I might get it just from that.
Yeah, let's play the game.
I think you'll know my one too. It's not so much that he's a screaming value, but he's just a guy that I think, if he can stay healthy, it's kind of like in the CMC mold that I think he's actually undervalued right now, but he has the ability to sort of break out. It's Kenneth Walker. It's 10.67 mil, 28 break even, currently owned by 2% of Supercoaches. He's underpriced from his average per game last season already. He averaged 33 Supercoach points per game last season. His biggest problem has been staying on the field. He played 11 games last season, including a game where he had 67 Supercoach points against the best rushing defense in the league in the Detroit Lions. Yes, it's a risk, but if you're trying to win Supercoach, Walker has a tremendous upside. The O-line is on the improve, and they have a new play caller who's already changing their running scheme to play to the strengths of that O-line. The team will run the ball a shit ton, so Walker, if he's healthy, has the ability to break out this season.
I really love that. That is a fantastic call. We really like him in terms of just that he's in a team where they have generally shown they only want to run one running back. So when he's healthy, he eats.
Absolutely, mate.
Mate, do you want to have a guess at who mine is?
Of course. I was thinking Travis Etienne.
You have plucked that out of slips. One hand, left hand, no time to look. That is a heck of a catch.
I saw him on the list and I was like, I can see the path, but I'm like, I reckon this is exactly who Matty C might pick. So I was like, I'll leave it. I've got other guys I was looking at. But yeah, look,
So that's just funny because when you wrote, I've got two, I'm like, well, either I'm going to pick the same guy as you, or I might have picked the other guy.
Yeah, look, because I'm not super high on him, but I can see the case at that price because if he's anything like it used to be, then it is completely undervalued. But I'll let you say your case now, mate.
Yeah, let me talk it through because he is currently at 8.6 million. So he's in that kind of weird price range that we were just kind of complaining about Pacheco being difficult to own in. I think what's different here for ETN is that he played through a lot of injury last year. And I think this is why we saw guys like Bigsby and Dearness Johnson out in the field as much as we did. But I don't have as much concern about it this year. I think that offense is in a much better place. They've gone and got themselves two really nice pass catchers. One last year who really grew. Another one who's now just starting to make the go of his rookie season. So I think that offense is in a much better place. The defense is poor, so they're going to be needing to chase games. And ETN gets the running, he gets the early down work, but you don't even need to take him off the field. He's a pass catcher. He's currently got a break even of about 14 points. So do I think he can beat his break even? I think that number is also so close to 100%. It's ridiculous. He's just kind of got all these markers that I really like, where I think his ability to grow cash is much higher than a guy like Pacheco. So this is a guy who's in my team as well. And he's the one guy that I gave myself as a guilty pleasure in that sort of $8-9 million range.
No problem, mate. And honestly, that is my biggest takeaway for super coaches in general. If you've got a feeling about a guy, just go for it. Don't listen to some wanker on me, like me on a podcast, say that you should be building your team a certain way. If you've got conviction on someone and you just sort of have a feeling about them this season, don't let anyone talk you out of it, because the last thing you'll want is to get to week one and that guy that you didn't put in your team because you listened to what you thought, my perception on a way a team should be built is. Just go with your gut, because honestly, that's the funnest way of playing any fantasy sport, is picking your guys and going for it.
You say this all the time too. In any fantasy league, one guy's going to win, everyone else is going to lose. So you might as well lose with players you like. Nothing more frustrating than losing with players you're like, I should own this guy and I don't even like him, and then he disappoints you.
Yep, go down with the ship, high-fiving Kenneth Walker on the way down as he does an injury.
That's it, man. That's the way. Guns are blazing. Don't go quietly. Go kicking and screaming. Mate, we've got to the end of a third SuperCoach Halfa. This Halfa thing isn't working out so much, but the SuperCoach beers.
Yeah, we're pushing the limits, mate. But look, we're trying to bring as much great content as we can. And sometimes when you're delving into big positions like running back, and I imagine wide receiver next week's probably not going to be any better. But yeah, we're really in the nitty gritty of the really, really meaningful positions where you're starting a lot of them. So look, if we go a bit over that time, then so be it. I'm sure people aren't going to come out with their pitchforks against us too much.
Mate, that's the one thing I haven't had from the podcast feedback yet, is people going, you guys talk too much. The shows are too long. I haven't had that. So I think we're onto something good.
I'm sure we'll do a tight end podcast, and that'll be about 11 minutes. So that'll get our average down to 30 minutes.
It'll bring us back in line. Mate, we're going to get out of here. We're back next week. But just in the meantime, for those who are into their NFL and who are footy tippers, we have a footy tipping competition going on with the AGN. It is run through our Linktree page, Linktree/Aussie Gridiron Network. The overall winner of that's going to win a custom NFL jersey. So it's heads up, winner or loser. There's no line or anything in it. A great chance. It's free to enter. Go and find that Linktree/Aussie Gridiron Network. It's on the ESPN tipping portal as well, which I know a heap of people use, so it should be nice and familiar. Come and join us. Tip against us. You'll see us all in there, and you can get some bragging rights for beating us, and you might pick yourself up a great custom jersey.
Absolutely, mate. Please get in there. Obviously, we're talking SuperCoach and NFL fantasy in general, but this is obviously for people that are, just love NFL in general. So please get in there, get a chance to get a custom jersey. How good's that? You're not going to get that from other places out there. So please jump in, guys. And thanks to everyone. I know we're going to sort of wrap it up at the end, but thanks to everyone that's honestly jumped on and started listening to this podcast. The feedback has been phenomenal. Like the people coming to me in my DMs and reaching out about how they've loved love the podcast. And, it's honestly really filled my cup, to be honest, Matty C, because we came up with the concept so quick and we wanted to get it out there, but we obviously weren't 100% sure if what was on there was going to be exactly what Supercoaches need. But the feedback we've got has been phenomenal. But like I said, if you've got anything you guys need to help you with your week one team, and obviously during the season, we'll be here for you guys with all your questions. We'll do mailbag. We'll be doing matchups, a lot, because they're very, very important in Supercoach and in NFL in general. So if you've got any questions, please reach out to us, or any feedback. We'll love it, mate. But yeah, I've been on my soapbox for a little while here, but I'm just honestly so thrilled with all the feedback. It's been great.
Incredible. The idea is like 16 days old, and already it kind of feels like there's this wonderful swell of support. So thank you so much. As listeners, it's your show. So give us some tips on what you'd like to see us be doing, and subjects you'd like us to be talking about. But at the moment, the feedback's been fantastic, and we are just so thrilled for the support. We'll get out of here. We'll catch you all next week, though, Tay. And for those who do play a bit of NFL fantasy, of course, you can find us on the Friday with the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show. We're back on Sunday as well. And G'day Gridiron doing NFL content in the middle on Saturday. So plenty across the network to get in and enjoy. Tay, I'll see you on Friday. Hooroo.
Hooroo, Matty C. Thank you, Supercoaches.
SuperCoach Halfa. Get your edge, get it faster. Taylor leads Matty's laughter. NFL SuperCoach Half-a. NFL SuperCoach Half-a. Get your edge, get it faster.